Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. As always, I'm Jonathan, your host here at QuickBird Gaming. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of QuickBird News. I really appreciate that. This video is going to cover all the gaming news from August 24th to August 30th, and we've got things to talk about. I have a whole slew of positive game updates, good things to look forward to. We have another Chinese developer premiere studio, or I should say a studio with its first game coming out, premiering its first game. That has kind of fallen on its face. But before we get to those stories, we got to talk about Knight Silksong and a price that may just be irresistible to us all. Okay, first up, we got to talk about this Games Rant article that was published on Friday, 29th of August. Knight Silksong price leaks. Knight Silksong will be priced at $19.99 according to a newly surfaced retailer listing that appears to have revealed the information prematurely. Following over half a decade's worth of development, Silksong has received a release date during Gamescom 2025 when Team Cherry committed to launching it on September 4th, though they haven't commented on the game's price tag. As of this, radio silence continues. The game's price tag may have just been revealed via a newly surfaced GameStop listing. As spotted by a Reddit user, the American retailer is already accepting pre-orders for the Switch version of Silksong priced at $19.99. Which is $5 above the original price of the price of the original Hollow Knight. At $20 or thereabout, Silksong will potentially offer immense value for the money. Team Cherry has previously confirmed the game will include over 200 new enemies, more than 40 bosses, and around 100 benches. Given that the original Hollow Knight included 51 benches, this suggests the sequel's map may be approximately twice as large, assuming a similar checkpoint density. This aligns with Team Cherry's previous estimate. The upcoming game could easily take over 100 hours to fully complete. Now, to me, this is just an amazing and remarkable success story. Hollow Knight has had a long cult following and has just done nothing but grow in popularity over the years. In fact, Silksong was, I'm not sure if it is as of this making of this video, but it was last week the most wishlisted game on Steam, beating out games like Battlefield 6. I mean, it is 5 million users, I think. It is the most wishlisted game. And the fact that this game is being made by 3 dudes in Australia and they are offering it up potentially for $20, this game could price at $40 and would still sell millions of copies. And to me, this is the way it's doing. If this game comes out and it is running flawlessly, I think I'm repeating myself from last week, but if this game runs flawlessly at $20, it is an immense value. And I just, no matter how bad the AAA industry continues to fuck up across the board, as long as we have these smaller developers out there that are willing to produce games of this quality and fill the gaps, we gamers will never truly be without good options. Now we can go over to the Steam DB charts just to show you how this is going on Hollow Knight. And you can see, as of last month, you can see the game is hitting new peaks almost daily. You know, for a game that had original, was hitting 8,000, 10 players following the announcement of Silksong, the sequel, it is now hitting 66,000 players as of today. It is continuing to grow in popularity. See, I think they did this right. They announced the release 2 weeks, out when there was no information before, and the hype is still going. 2 weeks, the hype is still going. It's just building. And September 4th is this week. It's Thursday. It's before 5 days from the posting of this video. So go get yourself some Hollow Knight because I think it's going to be a phenomenon. Okay, on the other side of the spectrum, we have this article from IGN, also from Friday the 29th of August. Lost Soul Aside dev acknowledges performance issues, assures players that it is actively working on optimizations. The PC and PS5 console exclusive released today on August 29th, but it's sitting at a mixed review on Steam from over 300 players. Now, if I go over here, this is on Saturday the 30th as I record this video. It's at 719 reviews with a 57% positive. So it hasn't gotten much better. Developer Ulti-Zero Games was quick to respond, assuring players, we've received your feedback regarding performance. We're working on optimizations, yada, yada, yada. No time frame was provided, so it's unclear when players can expect a fix. In the meantime, Steam continues to fill up with reviews from unhappy players. I've completed the prologue of Lost Soul Aside, and in its current state, I can't recommend the game, said one. Another added, I thought the movement looked jerky because of frame drops, but the walking just looks like that. It's so bad, it's honestly impressive. I'm only 3 hours in, but I'm really torn, commented another reviewer. The visuals are top notch and the combat is decent, a tier below Stellar Blade, but everything else is kind of a mess. So this is a game that is coming from Ulta Zero. This is a Chinese developer. This is their debut game, much like Wu Chang Fallen Feathers was its developer's debut game. And we're seeing a trend of games coming out of China, the first game, where they're having a lot of optimization and basically just game problems. And you can see over here this is the Steam DB page. It's sitting at 58% according to them, but they haven't really captured a whole lot of players. The problem becomes that, there's a saying out there that once is a coincidence, twice is a trend. Somewhere in the reviews of this game on the Steam page, somebody made the comment, for every Black Myth Wukong we get out of China, we're going to get 10 games like this. And that could be a significant problem for games coming out of China if they are going to develop this reputation. Because up to this point, they hadn't really had a reputation for AAA games anyway. It was more gacha type games and NetEase, free-to-play games with a lot of microtransactions, like Marvel Rivals, for example. This is starting to spill over into other games I'm seeing. This game, Lost Soul Aside, was first shown at this PlayStation State of Play. This is where I first saw it in February. Was scheduled for May, got pushed back to August, still had problems. Another game from a debut game from a new Chinese developer. I think Eclipse Moon Games is the name of the studio. Pardon me if I got that wrong. Called Tides of Annihilation that a lot of people were interested in. It's currently the 60th most wish-listed game on Steam, and with no release date, I think it's only going to get bigger. A lot of people were interested. But now you've had 2 games come out of China, 2 AAA games with significant problems. Now, Black Myth Wukong Studio Game Science has already announced another Black Myth game coming out. They announced it at Gamescom, but that's still years out. So there's a lot of time for studios from China to either excel or just kind of fall apart, and we're going to remain to be seen what will happen here. This game only had 3,000 players at its peak, released yesterday. A lot of people like to bring up games like No Man's Sky a game from a debut studio that had an ultimate redemption arc, but those games are by far the exception. More often than not, a bad first game will often kill a studio. So it remains to be seen which way Ulta Zero Games is going to go with this. We also have some positive stories to talk about this week, and I really like that. Sometimes these news segments get doom and gloom. We're going to start with this Game Rant article from Thursday, the 28th of August. The Witcher 4 and Cyberpunk 2 received positive development update from CD Projekt Red. Now, clearly, Witcher and Cyberpunk are 2 of the biggest game franchises in the industry out there. The Witcher 3 has sold something like 50 million copies in the 10 years since its release in 2015. And Cyberpunk, even though it had a little bit of a hiccup when it first released, I think has redeemed itself and has sold quite well. And its DLC sold quite well. And people are really excited about the next 2 games. So going without saying that CDPR, is going to lean into these franchises. Okay, The Witcher 4 and the highly anticipated sequel to Cyberpunk 2077 have received positive updates from CDPR as development on both titles appears to be full steam ahead, and both titles continue to increase the number of developers working on them. Okay, and this paragraph talks a little bit about both games, and then they say both the Witcher 4 and Cyberpunk 2 are likely still a few years away, but CD Projekt Red has once again provided fans with a development update on the titles and its many projects. In a new post on Twitter, the studio shared a chart displaying the development teams engaged in their projects. Witcher 4, which appears to be the studio's top priority, has 444 developers working on it, which is a 22-person increase from April. As for Cyberpunk 2, the sequel has risen from 96 developers to 116. Now, to put this in perspective, we're in an era right now where studios are closing. They're laying people off. Studios everywhere are shuttering, and they're kicking people out of their jobs. Microsoft recently just laid off thousands of people, many of whom were from Xbox, and shut down games. Crystal Dynamics this week just laid off more people. Ubisoft has been laying off people, seemingly bleeding people for months. And here you have a studio that's adding jobs and adding people. A good sign that they are committed and things are positive. I mean, it may not work out for them if these games crash. However, to me, it's a positive sign that they are building something. It's encouraging that they're building something that we're really going to like. At least that's what we're going to hope for. Also on the good news front, we have this article from PC Games In, also from Thursday, August 28th. If you thought your Elden Ring Nightreign suffering was over, think again. Elden Ring Nightreign is introducing a grueling multi-tiered challenge mode, Deep of the Night, that will put you to the ultimate test. So it's basically they've taken what they're and making it harder. And they're making the logical, when simply upping the difficulty of the boss isn't enough, the next logical step is to make everything torturously tough. Say hello to Deep of the Night. And they come down in here and they said, described as a high difficulty challenge mode designed for seasoned players who have navigated through the night many times. Deep of the Night brings multiple tiers of fuck you to the fore. If From's describing it as high difficulty, even by its grueling standards, I can expect we'll be bludgeoned from all angles until we either get good or crash out. You don't get to choose which Night Lord you go up against. You thought you could lock in your favorite Nightreign class and waltz into whichever fight you pleased. Wrong, bozo, suffer. The base mobs are stronger than usual. Double suffer. You'll get your mitts on some pretty cool new relics that have multiple effects, but guess what? They come with detrimental effects. And what happens when you conquer a boss, the difficulty tier increases and you get to do it all over again, but worse. And so it just sounds like they have made this out to be as punishing as possible. Now, I'm in the middle of playing a Souls game now for the first time, and this old guy with slow reflexes is finding it relatively challenging. But I know there are really good players at these, and they pretty much have said they've conquered everything, they've done everything, and they always look for it to be harder. Some people just like to dunk their balls in battery acid for whatever reason. Hopefully, this will give them the challenge they're looking for. But regardless of that, the key takeaway for me is FromSoft is listening to their players and giving them what they want. There's a segment that says they want it harder. They say harder, daddy. And FromSoft says you got it. And here we go. And I'm glad that they're listening. And we have this article from Eurogamer published on Saturday, 30th of August. Stardew Valley will be getting another update after all. And says, just months after revealing there'd be no more Stardew Valley updates until Haunted Chocolatier released, creator Eric Barone has confirmed another update is coming for the fan favorite farming sim. Addressing fans at the Stardew Valley Symphony of Seasons concert in Seattle, Barone himself took to the stage and revealed a secret to the excited attendees. He said that after the last 1.6 update, I don't know if I'm going to make another update, but I wanted to share something with you tonight. It's kind of a secret. There's going to be another update. Now, there are no details or timeline with this yet. Excuse me. But the fact that there's going to be an update has obviously excited all the players. Stardew Valley has been a crashing success. It has sold 41 million copies, I think the article says down below. There has not been an update since December of last year. So this is very welcome news for all the fans of this game. Of course, somebody in one of my Discords said something to the effect of, this man will do absolutely everything possible to avoid having developed Haunted Chocolatier. So I guess, it remains to be seen if we'll see another game come from Concerned Ape and the studio there. But, I guess to be determined, and good news for fans of the cozy farming sim. And finally, we have this bit of good news about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. This article was published on Dual Shockers on Wednesday, the 27th of August. The headline reads, Sandfall Interactive declares Clair Obscur a franchise, and I can't wait for more. And it says, while Sandfall has teased additional content for the game in the past, because they have talked about DLCs, they've never been definitive about their future plans. Okay, however, we come down here and it says, in an interview with Mr. Matty Plays on YouTube, Expedition 33 creative director Guillaume Broche was asked whether or not the team feels like Clair Obscur can become a franchise. Based on Broche's answer, I'd say it's a resounding yes, and he says, quote, Clair Obscur is the franchise name. Expedition 33 is one of the stories we want to tell in this franchise. Exactly what it will look like and what the concept will be is still too soon to announce, but what is sure is this is not the end of the Clair Obscur franchise. And he says he admits that when he's writing sequels, yes, he said sequels, he's comparing things to Expedition 33. So, Clair Obscur is going to be a franchise, or at least that's what Sandfall Interactive wants to do. I love seeing this, I won't call them an indie, but a double-A studio that comes out of nowhere and drops this absolute, bomb of a game, and I mean that in a good way, that is just, it's been a commercial and a critical success, and they're going to do more. They are going to have such a leg up on their next game that I think it's going to be an immediate success when they release it, provided, it doesn't end up in development hell for 15 years. They have a great opportunity to really develop something special. And with the creative and technical innovation they have shown, I think this is great news for people who love the first game. We're going to continue to get more good games out of the studio, I believe. And, I love having that out there to look forward to. Now, this article was published over at Games Radar on Thursday, the 28th of August, and I found this really interesting. The headline reads, you can put Dragon's Dogma 2 alongside Space Marine 2 and Helldivers 2 as a sterling example of what happens when you stop trying to make AAA games for everyone. And the quote is, it's normal if some people outside that target audience don't like the game. And this talks about the director of Dragon's Dogma 2, Hideki Itsuno. He says the goal was seemingly never to make a game for everyone, and as we've seen with other notable success stories in recent years, the results serve as an example of what happens when you stop doing that. And if it sells at this level, all good, Itsuno tells Video Game Chronicle when asked to reflect on the reception of DD2, meaning that if the game was loved by so many, it's all good. I made the game not like a Nintendo one to be liked by everyone, but for a certain type of audience. So it's normal if people outside it don't like that. It's very much its own beast, but you can see the same spirit in the mission statement of Helldivers 2, Arrowhead Game Studios. A game for everyone is a game for no one. Even the CEO at the top of the Space Marine 2 publishing chain echoes the sentiment. The core of our manifesto is we do not design and produce games for everyone. Now, the article goes on and talks about Itsuno's future plans now that he has left Capcom and is over working on a new studio under Tencent. But I really find this concept encouraging, because I think that the concept, the whole idea of making games for everyone has become so corrosive to the industry over the years. It's one of the primary factors that's dragging it down. You see it kind of reflected ongoing right now in Battlefield 6. There's some discussion out there about how it's changing some things, like not locking weapons to character classes. That's blurring the lines between it and Call of Duty, like they're trying to appeal to that Call of Duty crowd. I've seen some of that discussion. I see some of it going on in the discussion about upcoming GTA 6, where Rockstar is apparently toning down some of the more offensive humor and crass humor, because they want to make it more appealing. They don't want it to be boycotted, for one, but they want to make it more appealing to everyone. They want to be able to get it by without anybody pushing back. And I think when studios start to do that, they lose the core, of who their audience is, but the spirit of the game that they were making in the first place. And so I think it's encouraging that we're starting to see here and there more examples of people are saying, screw it, I'm making the game for the audience that I'm making it for. If other people want to come along for the ride, that's great, but they're welcome not to like it. They have Hello Kitty Island Adventure they can go play if they don't like my game. And I think that's a healthy attitude. It's not healthy for investors, and they're not going to like it. But at the end of the day, if the developer is making the game for the player and not for the investors, like they should be in this industry, I think that we're all better off in the long run. All right, I'm going to round out the video with this segment. This was from PC Gamer. It was published on Thursday, the 28th of August. Total War Warhammer 3, finally playable now that someone's modded in an entire Crab Empire faction with its own mechanics, lore, and enormous crustacean units. The article writer says, I'm not a scientist, but my understanding of the concept of carcinization is that in essence, all evolutionary roads lead to crab. You and me, someday will be crabs. Spiders? Crabs. Butterflies? Crabs. Total War Warhammer 3, you better believe it's on the road to crabdom, baby. In fact, in the case of that last one, it's at the end of the road, thanks to the Crustacean Nation. from a modder named Pegasus, which does the good and necessary work of adding a fully playable campaign race of crabs to the game. Let's see, these crabs are fully custom. The faction features 5 legendary lords, 3 generic lords, 30 general units of crab fodder. They've all got their own mechanics and have a slightly terrifying amount of work poured into them. Ever wanted to dispatch a crack squadron of airborne prawns at your enemies? Of course you have. What young child hasn't? I gotta admit, that sounds pretty cool. See, if you've watched this channel before, you know that I love mods and that I love modders, and I think they represent the best of the gaming community because of the passion they put into things. This dude didn't make any money off of this, at least not above the table. He did it for the love of the game, and I think that's what it really it does show you somebody who really loves the game. You think about things like Fallout London. You know, I love Fallout. And Fallout London was a huge mod done by a bunch of guys who just wanted to do something special with the game they loved. And so I think this is really great. And entire crab faction, I have to admit, sounds pretty cool. So, you know, if you're a Warhammer 3 player, you should probably check this out. And I know that he's there's a whole thread over on the Steam forums under the community for this. In fact, let's see if I scroll down here to where it was. It says to install Crustacean Nation, you can subscribe to it on the Steam Workshop, and you'll have to subscribe to another thing to get it unlocked. Once you have them both, the world is your oyster. And as it should be. Alrighty, folks, I'm going to leave this one here. There were a bunch of other things I could have talked about this week. There were a bunch of negative news stories, but sometimes you just like to accentuate the positive. You know, we can get really wrapped around the spindle about all the doom and gloom that's in the games industry, but sometimes there are positive stories, and I'm glad we could cover more of them this week. So I'm just gonna stop while I'm ahead. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like on it. I really am trying to increase my engagement. Please consider dropping a comment down below. Tell me if you enjoyed talking about some more positive stories. And if you enjoy this content on this channel, I would love for you to subscribe. It just takes one click to help support me and keep this channel lively. And I appreciate that if you do in advance, so thanking you for doing so. So we're going to call this quits here. Thank you all for listening and for attending, my news video. You all go out there, live your best lives, and you all stay gaming.